Hello guys, today we are going to continue with the example of the inheritance in C++ programming. At the last lesson we clearly understood that inheritance is a property of the C++ programming in which it gives us a specific notation of the class definition, which means that include iostream for the library of the C++ programming and main function given in here, return 0 at this point, and then the inheritance specifically defined by the dir class with the public base notation. It's the structure of the inheritance. Then we can use the feature of the base class in the dir notation. Okay, this is the basic definition of the inheritance in C++ programming as well as the C# programming. Okay, and at the last lesson we clearly give some specific examples about that, but in that class we will try to give some specific examples in here, which means that in the first example we create a student class in here, okay, with the definition of info class. So we create a student class with the info class. Okay, info class takes or holds some specific information about the students, like the name, surname, or IDNO, or points related to the lesson. Okay, we will try to implement hold this feature in the main function block. Okay, in this example we create a students class with the name of the stu1. Okay, if we run this program then we have no error because the info class is defined at the upper of the student class, and then student class derived from the info class. Okay, firstly we should define the specific constructor in here as a reminder of the last lesson. Okay, info class constructor definition by giving in here info class constructor as a warning of the user or the programmer in this code. Okay, info class destructor was given in here as a reminder of the this is here. Okay, and then in the public section student constructor can be defined in here, students constructor definition is the default constructor. If we are not create this constructor, then the compiler must write it for us. Okay, so we don't need to create this default constructor, but if we implement all the some specific information, or if we include some specific property of the class, we should define this constructor and as well as the overloading mechanism. Okay, and students destructor can be given in here, cout students destructor in this notation. Okay, and then if we create a stu1 variable or the instance or the objects related to the student class, which means that it's derived from the info class, and then we have info class constructor for the base constructor and the derived constructor is the student constructor. Then at the bottom of the main function block, then student destructor is called, and after that the info class destructor is called in here. Okay, and now we can pass the specific example or the basic example information in here. In the private section, we cannot use this constructor block in the students. Why? Because our student constructor cannot be reached the private info class information, because the private section is only includes the class info. Okay, we can only use the only constructor in the info class, and so as a special definition of the inheritance property or in the class property, we can use the protected notation or the structure block in here, which means that the protected can give us or give a pay for using this constructor in the student's class, because the student is a derived class and then the info class is the base class of our program. Okay, and then we can create a students in here. Okay, because it's protect session, and protect session can only be reached by the students class. Okay, but we cannot create info class in here because protected notation cannot be reached by the main function block. Protected section can only be used by the derived class notation. Okay, this is the main property of the inheritance in C++ programming. Okay, we cannot create the info class in here, and then we need to delete it. Okay, and we rerun this program, and info class constructor, student constructor, and its related destructors are given in here. Okay, and now we should define some specific variables in here. For example, we want to include some name for related to student, and we need to include the string library in C++ programming. Okay, and then string name can be defined by the typedef std basic string char, and then the string notation was given in here. So we need to serve name point in here, and this is the base class notation, so we need to add m character in front of the specific variable. Okay, and then we need to hold m id no in here, and then we can implement all the feature in the student class. Okay, so its whole is included or are contained in the protect section, which means that this variable can only be reached by the student class, not main or any global other function. Okay, so if we have default constructor in here, then we can define a overloaded constructor notation, such as the string name, string surname, and integer id no in here. Okay, then we have the member initialization notation. At this point, m name can be initialized by the name character, and m surname can be initialized, or in the first place we can use this notation in here: name, m surname, and m id no is equal to the id no. Okay, we can use this notation. Now, student class can be created by the some specific constructor overloading mechanism, which means that we can choose the default constructor or we can choose the student constructor overloaded in here. Okay, and then stu1 constructor in the parameter of name Mehmet, surname İşcan, and ID no 1567. Okay, and then we can run this program. Then info class constructor in here, student destructor and info class destructor can be called in the program, because now the overloaded student constructor can be reached or can be called by the main function block, because the most appropriate chosen for this structure is given in here. Okay, then we can display all the feature of this notation, which means that we can define as a constant value at this point, and then cout student information student name can be given by the name and andly in here. Cout student surname can be given by the surname andly. Okay, and the specific ID no or the related ID no can be given by the ID no variable. Okay, so we can call the display function in the main function block. Then we have info class constructor in here, student name Mehmet, İşcan 1567 can be given at this point. Now we can delete the default constructor notation in here, and so related info class constructor in here. Okay, however, we can use this notation or we can use the member initialization. Okay, name can be initialized by the name and surname initialized by the surname. Surname is the specific base variable, and then ID no is the ID no. Okay, but now ID no is not a non-static data member or base class of class students, which means that if we initialize all these things, and then we need to create some specific constructor block in here, because we cannot initialize by using this notation into these variables. Okay, name, surname, ID no cannot be initialized by the member initializing notation. Okay, and so what we have done in this code block, we can use the specific info class constructor at this point, which means that the string n, string s, and int id can be defined in the info class structure block. Okay, and so we can initialize now the name with the n, surname with the s, and ID no with the ID. Okay, and now we can initialize this constructor block due to the inheritance property. Okay, info class can be called by the specific overloading mechanism. Okay, name, surname, and ID no. Okay, this is the overloaded constructor block in here, and so we don't need to use this variable notation at this point. Okay, and then if we rerun this program, then we have the Mehmet İşcan 1 5 6 7. Okay, now we can use this constructor block by using or by overing this notation block in here. Okay, and so if we are using this variable notation, then we should also assign all the variables in private mode, because if we use this notation, then we can use constructor in here and info class set the whole points or the whole variable in the info class structure. Okay, and then info class constructor calls the mname, msurname, and mid no at this point. But however, we cannot use the display function block in here, because the student's name, mname, msurname, and mid no are hidden from the base class. Okay, now we can rearrange these program blocks in here like this one. Okay, and then stu1 display class cannot be called in here, but if we create a public section block at this point, then mname, msurname, and mid no can be accessed by the info class, because it's private object, but display function is included in the info class. Okay, and now we can use the public notation over the main function block. Okay, and then we can rerun this program. Then we have the Mehmet İşcan 1 5 6 7 in here. Okay, and now we can hide all the variable in info class, especially in the derived class. Okay, and then derived class only calls the constructor, the overloaded constructor, with parameter of the string name, string surname, and int id no, and then this constructor initialize this variable by using the base constructor notation info class, and we can change the parameters to the protected class of the constructor section. Okay, and now we can call the display function block in here, but display is the function of the info class, which means that the base class. Okay, this is the useful property of the inheritance structure in C++ programming as well as the C# programming. But I don't know, this property is included the Java programming, but who cares? And now we can add some specific notation in here. Int points can be stored for the calculate the whole points or the lesson points of the students in here. Okay, and then in order to assign some specific points, or in order to in order to add the score of the exams at this point, and then we can use this variable in here. But how we can use it? Okay, and now we should create some new function in here, void assign score exam in the parameter of the int p or the po. Okay, and then we can assign the points variable to the po. Okay, and then if we assign the score exam point in here, then we can display the score of the points at this point. Okay, student points in here, and the points can be given at this section. Okay, and then if we rerun this program, then the Mehmet, İşcan 1567 and the student points at this point 14,99737. Okay, but at this point points needs to be initialized by the 0 point. Okay, and now we can create this function, and then we rerun this program. Then we have the point, student points at the 0 value. Okay, now okay, we can use the vector class notation at this point, because there are the many students in the class, and then if we create some specific region or the class students, then we need to use the vector class. The vector mechanism is the basic linked list mechanism in which we can create a specific list stored by the pointers, or the showing the pointers notation in the C++ programming. And then if we use the vector machine or the vector class, then we have some class notation, or we can store the many students in one blocks. Okay, and so if we are using the vector class in here, then we have the vector notation in the syntax rule, and then we need to give a type name for this class, which means that in our example, students can be given in here, and then stu list can be created at this point, because the stu list is the list of the student class objects. Okay, and the vector mechanism is a simple, or is the same as the linked list mechanism in the C programming language. Okay, and then if we are using the vector functions, we can use the pushback function block in here. Okay, pushback. But if we are using the pushback function, we need to give the students a variable or students objects at this point, which means that we need to define the students objects in here with the parameter of the name Mehmet, surname İşcan, and 1, and points is automatically given by the program. Okay, and stu1 can be given at this point. Okay, and like this using this notation, stu2 is can be given by the Ammar, Urgan, and 2. This is the second student of this class, and it's the best guy in the physiological control lab. Okay, you should remember that. And now we can add the stu3 in here, Alper, and I don't remember the surname, Bay, and this guy warned me about that. And then we can add this person. Okay, now if you are using the vector class, and then stu_list can be store all the elements of the class. Okay, stu2 and stu_list can be added by using the pushback function with the parameter of the stu3. Okay, and then stu_list gives us the whole the students or the in the class. Okay, now we rerun this program, then we have no errors. Okay, and now we can write this information with the parameter of stylist, have some beautiful function in here which we call the size function, which means that it returns the number of elements in the vector class, which means that in our case the tree is the size of the stylist. Okay, and then if we create a loop, something like that, and then we can also reach the student list or stylist with the parameter of the parentheses operator subscript access. Okay, and then if we give the some specific point or the some specific integer value, in our case the e equal to 0 and 1 2 3, and then we can display whole the future of these students. Okay, and now we can rerun this program. Then we have Mehmet İşcan, Ammar Urgan and Alper Bay with the ID no and with the points of the 0. Okay, but now we should give a program some new line character in here, and then we have the number of the student name Mehmet İşcan, Ammar Urgan and Alper Bay is given here. Okay, and now if we reach the elements of the students I or the 0, and then assign score exam can be at this point, like this one 65, and for the specific related to other students, which means that 1 2 3, and then 1 5 5 and the other is 25. Okay, and if we rerun this program, then we have 65 for Mehmet İşcan and 55 Ammar Urgan and 25 for Alper Bay. Okay, and now we can use we can calculate the average number of the points in the class notation. Okay, which means that we can use the vector class notation at this point, and then we can implement whole the feature notation in here by using this static keyword structure. Okay, now we should define the static elements of the points, static double average points in here, and then we should also contain the sum of the points related to the whole student in the class. Okay, the sum points can be assigned by using this notation. Okay, sum points plus sum points per in here. Okay, if we are using the sum points, which is the static elements of the class, then the class has this variable, not the elements or the variables in the class notation. Okay, and so if we assign score, then we have to collect all the points in the students class. In our case, 3 guys is included in here, and then 3 points are included in this notation. Then sum points is equal to the 65 plus 55 plus 25. Okay, and we can also calculate the average points func can be given in here, and then cout the average points of the students can be calculated by the result value, and the double result can be assigned by the sum points in here, and then the student size or the number notation. So we need to add this other static variable in here, static int student number at this point, and then each of the students can be called or should be called by the specific constructor class in here, and then if we call this function, then the student created in the program, so we need to add or we need to increase the value of the student number because it's static, so the class possesses the whole feature of this variable, and then student number can be calculated by this using this notation. Okay, but now this variable should be initialized in this point. Okay, static should not be added at this point, so info class this point. Okay, double average info class should be assigned to this value, and then static keyword is equal to this value, and student number is initialized by the 0. Okay, this is the initializing or initializing the static member of the class. Okay, and now we can rerun this program. Then we have the same structure, which means that we have no syntax error in this program. But if we have the semantic error in this program, then we need to test this function block in here. Okay, so if we call the average points function, the students, for example, 0 average points func can be called at this point, and then the points are given by the 50 50 50, and then we have the 50 value for the average points function. Okay, and average points of the students function is equal to the 50. Okay, and now this 100 100, and then we need to get the 83.333. Okay, but this is the ugly usage, or this is the usefulness usage of the average points func, which means that the average points func returns the average point or the average calculation of the whole students points. Okay, and so we can use the static notation or the static function notation in here, which means that the average points is only possessed by the info class structure, and so we can call this notation info class average points func by using the static definition. Then we have the h3 function block. So there's one arising question in here, it's the base class of the student class. Okay, and so we can use these function blocks in here. This is the important property of the inherit structure in our usage, because the static function can be accessed by the derived class in this case the student class. And so if we are using the inheritance property, and then the students has the static elements or the static function of the base class. This is the rule of the C++ programming related to the inheritance usage, okay? And then we can assign the whole feature, or we can use the whole specific notation can be here. Especially in the vector class, in our example, it shows us the toList can contain all the students variable because it's the template name is given by the students, okay? If we are using the integer notation at this point, and then we have the syntax error because the no instance overloads function std vector blah blah blah blah in here. The compiler tells us that integer cannot be used at this point because the toList can contain, or the contains must contain, the student class variables. So vector class template name was given by the students property of the our derived class, okay? In our case it's okay. But what happens if we are using the base class notation at this point? Info class. And then we can run this program, and surprisingly it's worked. What happened in here? In C++ programming rules, or the syntax rules, can give a way to define this vector structure in students, or the derived class, or the base class notation. But why? This is the simple property of the inheritance rules, because info class can be used to the another class, okay? For example, class manager can be added in here, info class, or we can use the professor class, or the academic person class, okay? And the info class is the base of the academic person as well as the student person, okay? But the whole function blocks are included in the info class section, which means that we can use the info class instead of the academic person or the student person. And then the compiler can give a way to use the info class as a base of the toList, but we can add the whole constructor or the whole variables into the info class notation, because the syntax rule tell us, okay? This is the important property of our C++ programming, and it's called the polymorphism of the inheritance rules, okay? This is important property. Yes, the info class can be used in the vector notation. And what's the advantage of this using this notation? Okay, we can use the students, or normally we should use the students class structure in the vector dynamics, okay? But if we create some specific info class, and as well as the academic person derived from the info class, then we need to implement the polymorphism feature of the C++, okay? And so we can create the academic person at this point, which means that the academic person constructor can be added at this point with the parameter of the name string name, string surname, and it's the different feature of the academic person, which means that salary can be added at this point. And so info class constructor can be added in here with the parameter of name, surname, and salary. Okay, this is the derived class in here, and so we should define some info constructor point in here, and then we should define as the string and string s and double sal. Okay, and we should add some specific salary, salary variable in here, and then member initialization can be used or can be performed at this point in the parameter of the name and surname is initialized with s, and salary salary is initialized by the cell. Okay, and so we have no error in here, and then we have students list at this point, and assign score can be added in here, but we can at this point the stulis, and then academic person ac1 can be initialized by the, for example, Kamuran Kadi Pasa Oglu, and the salary is this, is high, and it's not a dollar, it's a Turkish liras. Okay, so we can use the AC1, the display function in here, but if you rerun this program, then the IDNO and student points cannot be added at this point, because the academic person uses the display this function. Okay, and so we need to define another display function at this point, display academic function in here, and name, surname can be added in here, but in this point we have the student salary or the academic name, academic surname, and academic salary. Salary should be added in here. Okay, and so we can use the display academic information at this point, and then we have the Kamuran Kadıpaşaoğlu and 20,000 liras, not dollar. Okay, and it's the drive class for the info class. Okay, and students as well as the drive class of the info class. And so what happened? Studlist pushback function is called by the AC1. Okay, what happened? And we have an error. Okay, because the no instance overloaded function matched the argument list. Okay, which means that the program or the compiler tell us we cannot use this function because it has a different type of the students. Okay, but if we create the vector class with the parameter of info class, and then AC1 should be added at this point. But we should have the right correction of the program. Okay, if we define the vector class with the parameter of the info class, which means that the base class, it's a base class of the academic person and student person, then we can add the student and academic person in the same vector class. Okay, this is the useful property of the vector class, or the inheritance property of the C++ programming. Okay, and then we can display the student list notation with the parameter of the list size function in here to determine the maximum number of the linked list, and then we can call the list I with the display function. Okay, so if we rerun this program, then we have Kamran Kadip. We should delete this section in here, and then we rerun this program. Then we have Mehmet İşcan, Amurgan Alperbay, and the academic person Kamran Kadipasioğlu, and ID point is included at this point. So we divide into the two class of the displaying function at this point. Okay, so how we can define this notation? Then we can reorganize the display function at this point, and display academic is deleted in here. And so if the students are assigned at this point, then we should use this function. But if the academic person at this point, and then we should use this function notation. Okay, so in the next lesson I can give you a static function definition points in here, but for now it's sufficient to understand the usage of the vector and inheritance class notation. Okay, at this point, have a nice day.